How does the feeling of social exclusion differ between children with sight impairment and severe sight impairment?
This is the current definition that we are using in the UK for people with vision impairment. So we are referring to two different populations. We have people with severe sight impairment. In this case, we're referring to people who are blind, and we also have people with sight impairment. In this case, we're referring to people with low vision, or in other words, people who are partially sighted.
How did you conduct your study, and what were the key takeaways?
We conducted three main studies focusing on three groups of adolescents: adolescents with severe sight impairment, or in other words with blindness, adolescents with sight impairment, or in other words with low vision, and sighted adolescents. The main key findings of these studies were that adolescents with low vision, they feel much less socially included compared to their blind peers, and I think this associates with previous research in this area, which has shown that people with vision impairment, with low vision, they fall in the gaps of current research and practice. We also found out that school belonging can have a significant effect on the development of self-esteem. We also found out that the relationships that adolescents with vision impairment develop with their peers in the classroom, they can have a very significant effect on their classroom participation and academic performance. And finally, and I think this is a very important finding, we found that these three groups, they are much more alike than different. So in contrast to previous research, which has tried to highlight the differences among people with vision impairment and sighted people, in this study actually we found that there are other factors independent of vision that they may affect socio-emotional and academic development, and these may be social factors such as parental support, teacher support, or the support that they receive from other services such as the rehabilitation support that they receive from organizations and charities.
How can policymakers and educators improve the school experience for students with sight impairment?
I think it's very important for policymakers and practitioners to understand that students with sight impairment, or in other words with low vision, are very much different compared to adolescents with severe sight impairment, or in other words blindness. They have their own academic and socio-emotional needs that of course are affected by their background experiences. I think that's why the provision of targeted and person-centered approach is so important. They usually fall within the gaps of current research and practice. And I think this is also one of the first studies that try to show the differences between these two groups. And some steps have already started to be taken towards this direction from the School of Education within the University of Birmingham that I'm collaborating with. They have developed the curriculum framework for people with vision impairment and blindness, and what they're actually trying to show is that each child with vision impairment, they need their own provision.